CropTalk, a podcast from TrueLane Equipment, where community, farming, and John Deere technology collide.
What's new in agriculture? What's happening in your neighborhood? And most importantly, who are the people that make it all happen?
TrueTalk, cultivating true conversations. Welcome back to the TrueTalk podcast. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Josh. Morning, Austin.
Morning.
We got three of us in the room today. We got myself and Jackson, and Austin is back on the podcast. How many times have you been on this podcast?
This is number 2 now.
That's what I thought.
Has it only been number 2?
Yeah, we got quite a few planned and coming up. I'm looking forward to.
I was thinking that too. A full disclosure, Austin's going to start kind of slipping in and providing some host duties and helping us out here very soon. So in my mind, he's been on this podcast a lot, but really he hasn't. We just have him planned to be on this podcast.
What was the one podcast you were on? Was it the Tech Roundtable?
It was after that.
It was after that?
It was like a See and Spray kind of discussion.
We ended up getting into a few different tech talks, but I think it was just a hot topic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hot
right.
topic.
Growing
Okay.
season hot topics.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because we had Tyler Thomas and Ryan Maxwell on for the Tech Roundtable.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
That's right.
It's coming back to me now.
Both good podcasts, if I
Yeah.
can say so myself. So we're going to do a little bit of an agronomy update. It's been a while since we've done that. We did do our fact or fiction agronomy version that kind of suited as an agronomy update.
Yeah.
I guess it's been a couple months now, but we're due.
Yeah.
And
more current events, you know.
Sitting here in the middle of August, and my thoughts were, if we would have done this podcast 2 weeks ago, it would have been really boring.
Yeah, it would have been really boring, really different.
There wasn't much going on 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks later, I got out my rubber raft and oar,
Right.
and I swam here to Bluffton today to make this podcast. That's
Right.
what it's been the last, say, week.
Every
Right.
phone call with every customer has had a similar introduction about wanting to sell me water or something to that effect.
Needless to say, we've had a lot of rain over the past 10 days.
An insane amount, historic amount,
Absolutely,
actually.
yeah. And in reality, we'll get into that discussion. And obviously, we've got some good things going on. We want to keep a positive spin, but we've got some areas impacted by flooding. We got some fields impacted by flooding, and the reality is, thoughts and prayers to parts of our territory that have massive flooding in their cities and bridges washing out. So
Yeah.
obviously, don't want to make light of any of that's going on. But the reality is, agronomically, 2 weeks ago, we would have probably talked a little bit about tar spot. And fast forward to today, and we're going to talk about tar spot, white mold, red crown rot, water damage,
Yeah.
flooding. It's taken a turn in the last couple of weeks to have some material to talk about. So, right, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to learn about hydroponics at this point. Most of our fields are underwater anyway. We've got about 13 inches around home. So,
Oh, you're in that 13. Oh, yeah, you are in that 13-inch over a
and it was
foot
about the best
area.
looking crop we had seen up to this point. So now I'm trying to figure out what this actually looks
Where-
like long term
where,
for us.
Where it
and-
leaves you standing after things
Yeah.
dissipate. Yeah,
We'll see how
for sure.
fast the water comes off. But
Right.
Yeah.
this might be the latest in the season that I've seen us sit this wet. We've had it earlier on,
Yeah.
but this late in the season, I'm curious to see what it does because largely the ear's filled out.
Right.
I don't know what it's going to do to kernel depth or if the plants are just going to end up dying off or my high spots versus my low spots. It's going to
Right.
be interesting to see.
Well, I mean, that was last on my list today
Well,
to talk
let's-
about, but let's just go into
Oh,
it.
you just want to hop? Okay.
Let's
go
do
for
it. Let's do it. So,
Okay.
Geography lesson. You are kind of on the southern tip of our territory, a little bit towards the southeast. And Jackson, you are pretty much working in Ohio, but you're on probably the far east of our Indiana territory
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
All of us are pretty much in Indiana. Jackson works in Ohio. We typically are asking for rain this time of year,
Correct.
right?
Last couple of years historically, it's
Yeah.
been very, very dry, super dry.
So I went back and looked at some statistics, and again, we cover a large amount of acres in our territory. But if you take the center of our territory, maybe on the north edge, we were probably in June we got twice the normal rain amount. Go to July, we got about half a normal rain amount, but we were still doing okay. We've had a lot of heat, we've had a lot of humidity, and we were starting to show some stresses in July. And then you jump into August, and we have just blown away. I'm sure we've blown away moisture records. I guess I haven't looked historically, but we're sitting, like you said, I've had a guy tell me this morning he's had 10 inches in the last week. That's
it's
insane.
Like you said, it does depend vastly on where you are at. Some parts of the territory have had maybe 2 inches. Some parts have had over a foot, over 12 inches of rain. And so, yeah, you think about what you got in June and maybe even July combined, it's less than what we got in the entire month of August, depending on where you're at, which is insane.
It is. And like I said, and I judge it by how many times I have to mow my yard. I hate mowing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I
me
hate
too,
mowing.
right.
I can't mow it right now.
Yeah, no kidding. I tried and
underwater.
it was a pretty sad attempt. I started mowing water. I'm like, oh, there's no grass coming out.
So I sent a picture to the group the other day and made a comment that my dogs were judging me for mowing my yard. I do not like to mow wet, and man, it was ugly. I had to.
Lots of ruts.
Oh, just masses
tire
of
marks?
clumps of grass. And
Clumping, yeah.
I did have to go around standing water.
Yeah, I know.
in my yard.
Well, after going around standing water, and I realized that most of the side ditch was just standing water, I gave up.
Yeah,
I just quit.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been tough. So typically we get a break from mowing this time of year too, right? So we've definitely had some interesting weather. So the discussion has been really and truly centered around what's this going to do to the crops, and we have scenarios in fields that are okay, they're just wet, and we have fields that are underwater, and creek bottoms and river bottoms and terribly underwater.
Yeah.
And there's a vast variety of things going on. And throw that into the storm that kind of pushed through Indiana, most of Indiana, when this all kind of first started. We had a little bit of a derecho, and we had a lot of corn blow over.
Yeah. How'd you fare out your way, Josh? Because I think you would be the biggest victim most of the time, because just the geography, the way that it hits you, because we definitely had that way. We actually almost had a tornado touchdown a couple miles from my house. Got a video of the funnel cloud coming down, and it kind of petered out and went away, thankfully. But we had some of those rough winds, but I didn't see any corn down in my area. But out your way, I think that's a different story.
Yeah, it hit us, and there's a certain highway that we drive down that all the fields on that highway were just basically laying over inside the first couple of rows. And so it comes back to, what do you do? How do you address that? And flooding aside, I mean, obviously the patience is a virtue, to give it a few days, right, for that corn to respond. It is going to respond, and some of it, or most of it's, going to hopefully come back up. I talked to a customer this morning, and the biggest thing was, hey, did you see any green snap? No, I did not. Okay, thank God for that. And did we have anything get uprooted? And his thought was, no, really didn't get anything uprooted. Now, at this point, some of it's starting to kind of straighten back up. Some of it, he said, probably won't straighten back up. But that's kind of the situation. And that's a fairly narrow band, I think, where that happened. But it was some crazy straight line winds. And you could just watch. And I happened to be driving, ill-advised driving during that storm, and I watched that corn whip around and lay over. Probably it was more than a 45-degree angle at that point. I mean, it was getting whipped around pretty good. So, probably not going to be doing much in crop if we want to go out and use a ground rig to spray a latent fungicide. That's probably not going to happen.
You might be proving a point for a drone at this point, but
that's when the drones and airplanes. We had that discussion again on the way over as well. So.
Josh, do you have any insight for the customers that do have their roots underwater right now, where there's actual flooding? How long do they have with corn versus bean plant roots underwater before significant damage, or just plant dubs? Yeah,
that's the other part of the question. And the reality is, we don't have a lot of research on that. We don't typically get a lot of these kind of August rains historically, but we always said in early in the season, if you have crops in standing water for 2 days, they're pretty much done. They're not going to recover.
2 days, regardless if it's beans or corn, because I know which plant is it that quote unquote hates wet feet.
Beans. Within 5 hours, honestly, the bean plants hairs are dying off.
That's what I've always heard. Right, beans are more adverse to the standing water.
Early wet soil affects beans. It affects them a lot throughout the rest of the season. But the reality is, right now, I mean, my thought, and kind of looking at some research, you got really maybe 5 days. It can weather another 4 or 5 days. A couple more days than it could if it was earlier in the season. The reason is we have a whole lot more plant tissue above ground, right? Yeah. But the reality is, it's going to be hard on roots, very hard on the roots. If you're in saturated soils, let's just say you get the water off the field in 3 or 4 days, you're going to still have some pretty saturated soils for a few days after that, right? So you're asking a lot for those roots to be able to live through that, because they're not going to get any oxygen in those situations, and it's going to really, really affect kind of everything for the rest of the season in terms of the plant health and photosynthesis and root quality and stock quality. And are we bringing in, potential stalk rots and a variety of things. So,
and then if we even do get the roots to survive, what damage has been done to the soil in terms of the biological activity that impacts nutrient availability
and nutrient flush. How much nitrogen have we lost?
Exactly.
I mean, one of my bigger concerns this year prior to this weather event was we've had enough rain, particularly in June. You know, we typically would like to have June a little bit drier, right? We want those roots to follow the moisture down and establish. And I think that our plant health is typically a little bit better if we can have a little bit drier June, and then we want to start getting some rain in July. Well, this year that got flipped. So I was a little concerned about losing some nitrogen anyway. There's no question we had some nitrogen loss this year. Well, now we're getting to the end of the season, and we know that corn plant still wants to have a maybe 20 or 30% of that nitrogen available for ear fill, and we're probably flushing a good bit out right now as well, and what residual nitrogen we have. So that's a concern in and of itself of nutrient loss up and beyond. But so here's my question. I was thinking about this, right? We know we got to get those roots to dry and be able to have some oxygen and exchange some oxygen to keep that photosynthesis going. And so right now these plants are probably shut down. We need the water to get off. We need the soil to dry out. We're going to need some sunshine at some point. In the midst of all this, we've not had a lot of sunshine either. So I got a question for you guys, and just kind of a general thought. Is it a good thing that we don't have sunshine right now so that factory's not trying to work? It's almost like maybe it's a good thing we don't have sunshine right now, so the plant wouldn't try to create photosynthesis when the roots are not going to be involved.
Yeah, I guess I would call myself agronomy curious more than an agronomy expert, but it makes more sense to me that it's better to have that plant not as active right now. And then the other thing I start thinking through is if that's helping us hit the pause button, are there other ways that we can hit the pause button? You know, there's opportunities now with stress mitigators that we've used in these dry seasons for a while, and even PGRs. What do you think about playing the hand of God and spraying stuff on to lower ethylene production and lower that stress level in the plant to continue to hit pause?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I would say I know, since I'm not really an agronomist, I do enjoy the agronomy side of things, but I'm not an expert by any means. The agronomist would love to try and pull that off or say that would be worth your time. But I know at the end of the day, it's about how much is it going to cost to put it on? Is it going to pay that back out? Because the agronomist is always going to say you should do X, Y, Z. You know, obviously you're still concerned about the cost, but you are wanting to do what's best for the plant, not best for the pocketbook always.
Right.
So,
right. And typically, and again, we had a discussion on the way over here too. Typically to me, the stress regulators are more valuable in drought conditions. So,
well, and we've had a lot of data to prove that out because we get more dry Augusts than we do just like totally saturated Augusts.
Is it also because, well, one, we're more expecting a dry drought, but also because a plant can weather the drought better than it can because like you said, you got 2 days, you said minimum, but maybe 5 at the most that a plant is going to be able to survive that before it needs to have that water cleared off. A plant can weather a drought for a month, right? Whether it's good for it or not.
We always said a drought will worry you to death, but the excessive moisture is
what'll kill you.
Is far worse. Yeah, that was exactly the statement. Will kill you. And I mean, the reality is, once we get this water off, I would love to find a way to jumpstart a plant.
Yeah.
I don't know if stress mitigators are the way to do that. That's fine. To me, it would be maybe more of kind of you talk about a PGR or some kind of a fertility spike or a little bit of a sugar nitrogen spike, something to get that plant excited and active again. But again, you know, this cloudy weather would really be very disappointing if we didn't have all this rain, right? Yeah. But the reality is maybe the cloudy weather's saving us because that plant is just sitting there chilling out, not ready to fire back up again until its roots are in a much healthier situation. But so again, that's saturated soils, and then ponding, severe ponding. I mean, the reality is if we had lakes or rivers and creeks get out, that crop's going to be pretty devastated.
It's going to be gone, right?
Yeah,
at this point, there's no, because I mean, I've heard guys talk about how, yeah, you got standing water. It's covering the base of the plant, the root. But then I've heard guys talk about how the only thing they could see out of their corn was the tassel. Right. That corn is not going to make it.
It won't mature. Yeah, it's going to die, and probably the stalk will be rotten, deteriorated by the time they would harvest it.
So there's no picking that corn either, really.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Likely the stuff that's got the roots underwater for a week plus is
gone.
Largely in the same boat too. And there's no PGR in your way out
No,
of that.
Right. Right. So the reality is, look, and again, we're talking about a pretty small percentage of the area, but
realistically,
we can't not talk about. Yeah, we can't not talk about it. So we're going to hope for the best, and the reality is, I mean, is we can get the water away, and then we can get those soils to dry a little bit and get some sunshine.
I'm curious to see what farmers are able to do and what data we get off of this, since it is a little unique. Like, we've got lots of data for managing stress in those droughts, and I'm hoping that some people try some plots and some things so we can at least learn from this event, and that can be one positive that comes out of it.
Well, we had some really good, and we still do, had some really good looking corn.
Yeah.
Up to this, and again, that thoughts and prayers to the people that are suffering the most damage. And like I said, the fields that are underwater, obviously, and the guys that farm some of those fields, they know that sometimes that's going to happen. And we haven't had a massive flood in some bottoms for a while, but it kind of comes with the territory in some of those fields. So we'll hope for the best. Move on.
Talk a little bit more boring, plain Jane. You want to cover some common diseases or diseases?
Yeah. So I said there wasn't a lot going on. Obviously you can't not talk about tar spot. And the funny thing is, you look at the weather this year, and we had tar spot show up in your home county, Jackson, and 2 months ago.
Yeah, see, it's crazy, which I remember you pointing that out at one of the agronomy meetings, because you use that tracker that kind of covers where it's been spotted and reported, and it showed up in Randolph County, and then so of course I've been looking. I checked my corn middle of July, and some of my grandpa's corn, and then I checked it again here just the other day. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. I haven't seen anything.
So you know why that is. So the reality is, if it's reported and confirmed, it's going to show up on our tracking map.
Yeah.
And the reality is, we had a pretty hot spell of weather after that was first detected in Randolph County, and tar spot does not like hot, dry weather. It likes a little bit cooler, and obviously likes the humidity. So really, we were blessed with conditions that weren't going to allow it to spread hot and heavy. Now, it's been detected pretty much all across our territory in Indiana, and several parts of our territory in Ohio and Michigan. But that just means it's been confirmed in a field. I've not seen a lot of it either.
No.
I expect that we will now.
Do you think so?
With this moisture and this cool down.
So is it too late? I mean, ground rigs aren't going to be able to get in, obviously. So we could talk about trying to get a guy to fly it on. But like, is it at this point? It
depends on the growth stage of the crop. Typically, they say you can spray up to R3 in corn.
Yeah, kind of that brown silk.
Yeah.
Like this year for us, this is the first year we've actually done a 2-step fungicide on our corn, where we came in pre-tassel and did it because of the pressure that we were seeing around. And then from neighboring fields that had tar spot pretty heavy, we had those spores blow in, started seeing it on the top of the leaves, and we did that second pass right on right at brown silk.
Perfect.
And we've got good control out of it. I don't think it's actually done too much to the plant, and it's really just right at the tips of those leaves, right around the tassel.
Okay.
So you saw it pretty hot and heavy, you would say, in your area.
It's not as bad as what was that, 23 when it came through, but definitely worse than last year. Last year we didn't see much at all. We got away with. We were set up to do a 2-step. We only ended up doing one because it wasn't around us. And
smart to watch that, to watch that location of where the disease is at, and watch your fields, and can make those adjustments on the fly. I like that 2-step program. And the reality is, it came in late enough. It was on some upper leaves, so if you hadn't addressed that, it could have been bad, pretty bad.
Right, and that translates to a lot of yield pretty quick. We've seen that consistently the last several years. The people that have done test plots, that can be 20 bushel in a hurry.
Well, I was going to say, what, 40% or something?
Yeah, 20% easy. Yeah, 30%. So yeah, I mean, we're still, regardless of what's going on in the soil and the wetness, we're still going to have to manage tar spot at this point, and that means it's probably going to have to be aerial, drone, rigs if guys still need to do some spraying. I feel like fungicide spraying, we as it in our territory, I feel like the timing of our fungicide spraying was really good. I feel like there were a lot of planes and a lot of ground rigs going up until this storm came in. So I feel like we were treating things and treating them well, and the timing was going to be really good according to the weather, the weather forecast. And so we're still watching that. The other ones in soybeans. Well, actually, let me say one thing in corn. We do also have corn aphids back again this year in some places. That's kind of a unique one for us. We had it show up pretty hot and heavy in some areas 2 years ago. It was not a typical concern for us in our area. It's usually not corn aphids, and it's probably still not a concern in our area. but they are kind of showing up. So
we saw some of that too, though. Like we ended up doing insecticide on both
Right.
of those passes
Really?
just because of the aphid problem.
And the reality is, if you're a lot of guys are throwing insecticide anyway in with their fungicide, which is a nice synergy effect, and it works.
Does.
It's a cheap way to help grain quality.
Cheap, right? It's
super cheap,
cost effective. You're already out there, you might as well.
Right. So the idea was, if you're going to spray an insecticide, just make sure it's going to hit aphids. It's going to cover aphids.
Right.
What other insects, pests are you seeing?
Oh, I mean, we had pretty high Japanese beetle counts this year. I mean, as per usual. And I don't know. I'm assuming there's some rootworm beetles out there. I hadn't seen a lot of them, but stink bugs are making their presence known. I hate those. Those things stink.
Yeah.
Ha ha. Where's the
funny.
drumming symbol?
And I typically worry about those more in soybeans. They can vector in some diseases that we kind of want to worry about. And so I mean, insecticide. Look, we've said it before. We're not crazy about just throwing a bunch of chemicals and pesticides out there just for the heck of it. But the reality of it is, insecticides have become kind of a necessary evil. I see it for two things. Number one, vectoring in diseases, particularly in soybeans. The other thing is grain quality. There's a lot of insect feeding that goes on. Take pollination out of it, right? We don't want the silk clipping insects, but there's a lot of feeding that happens at the end of that cob that kind of affects grain quality. And when we throw that cheap insecticide in, I feel like it helps our grain quality quite a bit. So it's been a no-brainer. $2 or $3 an acre.
Yeah.
It pays for itself very, very easily. So anyway, the corn aphids, again, I'm with Austin. If you're going to spray fungicide, throw a cheap insecticide, make sure it covers aphids. And, the reality is they can hurt you a little bit by getting in there and feeding on that inner leaf tissue. But the reality is, they're probably more of the damage is just covering leaf surfaces, with their manure or their frass, as you would call it, or just shading out leaves. But I think they tend to favor flavorful varieties, hybrids.
I remember you've always said that, is that and it makes sense that certain varieties would have a different
taste.
Call it a flavor profile. Right.
Similar to like a pheromone kind of thing. And I think it's the same way in beans, and it's the same way with corn silks. You can tell that insects like certain hybrids and certain varieties that just taste better to them. So, and I think it's the same way with aphids too. The other thing with aphids is they typically come from our northwest. They blow in with weather, and it's crazy to think about a storm bringing aphids, but they literally get deposited with storms. And for years we were worried about soybean aphids, and it was always those northwest weather patterns that came down from the northwest. And we've had a lot of that this year. A lot of our weather's come from the northwest, so that kind of explains why these have been getting deposited in our area, coming in on the weather patterns. So easy to manage.
Yeah.
The other ones that we've kind of that really crept up, and hindsight's 2020 on one of these, is white mold is rearing its ugly head in a lot of places. So white mold lives in the soil, loves dark ground, loves wet, dewy, high moisture fields.
That's what
air movement.
That's what we've been having the last. But see, like, would you say historically? I feel like the last maybe year or 2 years, it hasn't been near as bad.
Well, 2 years ago it was bad.
2 years ago it was bad.
Okay. So, and then those fields are in beans again for most people this year, which is kind of a double whammy. You guys know, man, when you for almost the whole last month, you'd walk outside in the morning and your windshields were covered in dew.
It's bad. It was so foggy. Yeah, it's been dewy. It's been not good.
And it's still, the one morning I remember not seeing dew on my truck windshield was the morning there was a little bit of a breeze, of course, which breezes were few and far between, right? If we have these heavy dews. So think about a field of soybeans that's maybe 15 inches and has plenty of bushy plants and leaves, and you're walking down those rows even at 2:00 in the afternoon, and you're still getting wet.
So do you think that's an interesting? Do you think 30-inch beans pays?
A 30-inch beans is a nice management tool for
white mold.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's just because I'm paying attention, but the last year, just this year, I've noticed or heard more guys in my area saying, "Oh, I plant 30-inch beans." I don't know if it's simplicity because they have one machine that does both, a
Very
planter.
likely.
But they said, "Oh, I've gone away from it. I just do 30-inch beans." I go, "Really?"
It helps
There's
airflow.
trade-offs with
Right.
all that.
For sure. There's trade-offs with anything.
Still a big 15-inch guy, but
I'm always
does allow air.
I think year in and
airflow.
year out. Year in and year out, you're going to have a little bit better yield with 15-inch beans. But I'm with you. Look, that's one of the management techniques is going to wider rows. You're encouraging airflow to a point. The other thing we always talked about is what if you planted east and west, right? Because the wind's almost always coming from the west to increase airflow down the rows. You know, so those are some kind of management techniques. But here's the thing about white mold: once you see it, it's typically this time of the season when you're probably pushing R3, R4, probably in R4, at least R4, R5, and it infects that plant earlier in the season, closer to R1. And when you see it, it's kind of late to do anything about it.
Can't do nothing.
So we're going to have to change our mindset, I think, on white mold. We know where it's at. It loves the dark ground. It loves the.
Do you think field tile helps with that?
I think it probably helps some. Sure.
Promote
drainage
aerobic
for sure.
activity.
Sure. Drainage helps a lot. But the reality is sometimes we have to treat. We're going to have to start treating for white mold before we know we have white mold. Right. That means shooting an early fungicide on soybeans. Maybe we're just going to apply it in our dark areas, the areas that we historically know we have white mold. We're going to have to start finding ways to manage that. And there are some fungicides out there that do help, but it's a timing thing. So we typically want to spray fungicides in soybeans at R3. We have to change that mindset, maybe even go to a 2-pass. Maybe we just hit the areas that historically have white mold at R1 and only those areas. And then we come back with another fungicide pass at R3, you know. We're going to have to start managing it differently. And there are some proprietary products out there that can also supposedly help.
In furrow products that can supposedly help.
Yeah. And they're new. And
there's biologicals that can supposedly help.
Yeah. So
we say supposedly because we don't have enough data, not enough to back it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a pathogen that lives deep in the soil for a long, long time.
That's what you said. Well, I always think about the case that you have. You said you had a guy that's planted corn 7 years in a row or something to try and get rid of white mold.
Yeah, and it came right back.
And it came right back.
Yeah. So it's a toughie, but it's here. You know, I think it's here. It's one that we're gonna have to start watching and making some concessions and manage that a little bit differently moving forward. I'm convinced after seeing it 2 out of the last 3 years, and it's really heavy in a couple fields that I've never seen it in before. So we're gonna have to address it. And again, it's also no question that certain soybean varieties are more susceptible.
Yep.
You know, some of them that are susceptible, really susceptible, you can see it from the road. You know, so hybrid selection, variety selection, management techniques, early treatments, even if it's spot treatments for areas that you know you have the potential to have that disease.
Have you seen much cyst nematode popping up? I feel like that's another one kind of rearing its head.
Yeah, so cyst nematode was a big deal probably back when I was probably your guys' age or a little bit before. We tested a lot for soybean cyst nematodes. The Indiana Soybean Board was kind of sponsoring that, and nematology labs were booming, and we found a lot of them. And I feel like that just kind of died for a few years. You know, for several years we just didn't talk about them, and maybe that was because we bred the control into the. It
seems like the Peking varieties really just control that, but
right. And I think people
Extend Flex beans, we really like those, but we've got some pockets where now we're seeing cyst nematode pop back in.
Yeah, they're making a comeback.
Yeah,
and that probably tells me we've kind of gotten maybe a little bit. I don't want to say lazy, but we've kind of gotten away from it on the breeding side. But no, they're kind of making a hot comeback. The thing about cyst nematodes is they just can weaken a plant and allow it to be susceptible to so many things. You know, particularly sudden death. We always felt like there was a tie-in with sudden death syndrome and soybean cyst nematodes because those nematodes can really weaken that plant.
It looks very similar, right?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think nematodes are back in play too. So, yeah, it wasn't. I don't know what else to say about that one, but I know that they're starting to bring some of those old nematode genetics back into play and infusing those into our lineups in one way or another. So there's a reason why. So then the other thing going on out there is red crown root rot.
I had to say that slowly.
Yeah.
Make sure you get it all right.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Austin, what do you know about red crown root rot? I'm asking him for a reason.
RC.
I'm not going to say why.
RR.
You're going to have to tell me why. I don't know that I can speak a lot to it.
No, it's really, I mean, it's just it's another disease. It's kind of crept into soybeans, and it's a wet feet thing.
Right.
So
okay.
Fairly new. I don't know that we know a lot about treatment. You brought in drainage tile.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
To me, that's a big one for red crown root rot. Red crown.
RCRR.
Yeah, RCRR. So wet feet. Wet feet.
Beans just hate wet
feet. Early infections.
My only takeaway with a lot of these things is keep it drier. We obviously put a lot of field tile in. It seems like once you get done tiling everything, you should go and split it because it's not just the drainage part of it, but also the aerobic activity, the soil biology promotion that you get out of it. It's just incredible.
Root
handles
growth
this disease.
I mean,
much better.
Drainage does so much. I know it's an expensive thing, but man,
does it always pay?
Oh my gosh, and it's one of the
I think it always pays.
It's one of the things.
Yeah.
If somebody has poor drainage, they're going to be up against it from day one. Every year.
You mean
right?
You've got a disadvantage from day one.
Perfect candidate. Yeah. Everything we have, at least in my area in Jay County, it's just terrible drainage. It's so dense. It's so clay. It's so poor. It's so crap.
I think there's still a lot of farmers though that think about drainage as just getting the wet spots out. And I'm really a big advocate of pattern tile because of that aerobic activity that it promotes, and also just lowering the water table. There's huge agronomics.
And Bruce, follow the water down. I mean,
it does.
You got to think about it weird. Like it's, there's always, and I've said this on other podcasts, it's a misnomer that you can you're going to root really well in dry soil. That's false. Roots follow moisture. If you plant corn in a soil that's already dry, the roots aren't going to go down if it can't follow moisture. Tile pulls that water down, which in my opinion pulls those roots down too. Those roots follow that water down and follow that water deeper. So it causes that plant to be rooted in very, very well and very, very deep. And like you said, you're creating that aerobic environment where soils aren't saturated. So you have healthy bacteria, right? Much healthier bacteria. And it pays so well. But, back to that red crown root rot.
RCRR. You said it was new, so like new as in we haven't seen it in our area, it's just a newer.
It's I don't know that it's new. It's just been a hot topic the last few years because it's starting to show up a lot in our area. And again, it's similar enough to white mold in the standpoint that it's going to affect your plant earlier than it's there. But to me, it's again we're gonna I think that the way out of this RCRR is going to be variety selection, breeding, but drainage is going to be a big deal. Where I've seen it, and I saw it some last year, was in fields that were wet early.
Yeah.
And it's just and it starts to show up. It can show up a little early, but you're going to start seeing it now. If you're not looking for it early, if you have red crown root rot, you're going to start seeing some stress in plants and some leaves turning yellow, kind of similar to sudden death, with the interveinal chlorosis and some leaves yellowing and turning brown. So then the reality is, I don't know the specific varieties, but you can see it. You can see it. I mean, you can literally see it. And we know there are varieties that are susceptible. We know there are varieties that are super susceptible to white mold. I mean, you can drive down the road and see it. And we have fields next door that showed nothing. So varieties have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just didn't know if you had seen specific characteristics. Like cyst nematode, for example, we know Peking genetic markers make a huge difference for that. So I didn't know if you had some insights.
Nope, I do not. And it's new enough that I'm not so sure our seed company.
I haven't seen any
there down either.
I keep asking, like, new enough, is it new enough in our area, or is there like certain areas of the country or territory that it's they've seen it, they've dealt with it, they've always had it. It's just new for our territory.
I think it's fairly new in general
as a disease.
Yeah, but I think it's typically things get in our area, they've already been in other areas. But the reality is, universities are looking for data. So my shout out to the customer is, if you think you have red crown root rot, reach out to your local extension agent and get the universities out there, because they want to learn, and they want to learn more about it and know where it's at, and I'm sure our seed companies do as well. Mm-hmm. So. And we'll see that change in the genetics as we move forward for red crown root rot. It's got to be one that's going to have to be addressed from a genetic standpoint. There's no question. And we'll learn about it, and maybe we'll learn that there's a management technique or maybe a particular fungicide timing on it, but we just don't know that yet. But to me, the biggest thing is, do you have it? Make a note of it. Let your university know. And let's think about drainage. Let's think about watching and talking to your seed guy and see if they're starting to account that into their breeding programs. Surely they are. Hope they are. So, like I said, the wet feet in soybeans can be rough.
Yeah.
And typically wet early. Again, a lot of times soybeans will get infected with something that we can't see. It's invisible, but they get infected much earlier in the season, and they start showing up this time of year. Kind of too late.
Yeah, it's usually I mean, it's the same way in humans when they talk about you start showing your symptoms after you've already had it for a week or something. When the best time to treat it is before you have symptoms.
Yep.
So
it is going to be. I mean, it is going to be interesting to see what plays out to be best to manage it. Is it going to be a seed coating, or is it going to be some of these planter box biologicals? I'm pretty excited about what those can do.
Sure.
When they bond with the seed, actual biological, the half-life looks way better than a seed treatment, because it's actually staying with it for the entirety of the plant and can guard against funguses and other pests and things like that. So it's cool to see if we can get that science back.
Right. And seed treatments are going to be a player, though. They're going to be a player in white mold too. I'm sure of that. But we're at a period of time where soil biology has been stressed and very, very important. And I agree. And so if we can find more natural biological means to deal with this stuff, that would be awesome. Because reality is, I mean, anytime you put a fungicide or an insecticide in the soil, you're probably going to have a negative effect in soil biology in that area.
Yep.
So I agree. So,
and any other diseases?
That's pretty much it right now. I mean, obviously, we want to get rid of some water and press forward. And I want to be honest. I mean, and again, we were talking about this on the way over. We have some really good looking crops. And
so I want to use that to kind of pivot, because I think you mentioned in our last agronomy update, right? September is always going to be, depending on when you actually got in the field and planted. Some guys might get started. You said you figured there would be some guys maybe taking off some high moisture corn your way this month.
Right.
Or sorry, in September. Yeah. I mean, not August, but September.
And there usually is. We have a lot of guys that will. Now, obviously, we were on pace growing degree day wise, on pace for average. We were doing really well. Obviously, this weather, this last 5 or 6 or 7 days is going to slow that down a little bit. So we may have a little delay, but we can turn off hot and dry again at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's all about heat units.
Yeah. So do you think still forecasted at this point mid to late September?
Oh, I think anything planted in early to mid April, you've got a chance to be harvesting corn in September, probably late September at this point. For sure.
We got a lot in early like that, and it's starting to dent.
Yeah. Is it okay? Yeah. I was gonna say
just barely started.
Barely, yeah. So it sounds like was it last fall too? It just kind of went on and on and on for us as a dealership. You know, we got guys. I mean, each store had their own thing, but like as a company overall, we started in mid September, and I don't think we finished till into November almost.
It's
for
gonna
some
be like
guys.
this. It's no question. But if you think about last year, we had guys planting April 13th, April 10th, and we had guys planting in June. And this year, guess what? We had guys planting April 13th. We had guys planting the first week of June. So as a territory, that's probably going to be a bit of normalcy for us, as big as we are and as much area as we cover.
Well, right. But
we were on pace for, I think, a pretty early harvest over on the Indiana side. We'll see. We got to weather through this, quote unquote, weather through this last batch of weather we had and get things dry and get some sunshine, get things pumping out again. So definitely we're talking about, we have to talk about the evils that are out there. Otherwise we have nothing to talk about sometimes, but we definitely have some good looking crops in a lot of places. I do not want to underestimate that.
Right.
Kernel counts have been great. Soybeans are potted to the hilt in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So got some good looking stuff and hopefully we can finish strong. Jackson?
I know. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording. I'm supposed to be, I shouldn't say supposed to be. I am a bit of our forages guy, hay and forages. So I've always found it a little bit interesting. Not a whole lot of our territory is as rooted heavily in that, but we still have a decent amount of customers that they make it, whether it's part of their livestock operation or they do it for a business portion. But I like talking about forages. Forages are one thing that love. Maybe not as much of this moisture, but love, the cool, wet, that's always said that cool, wet weather makes really good hay.
Cool weather forages. And the reality is we've had enough moisture on and off this year to have a lot of material when it comes to making hay.
Yeah, a lot of tonnage, a lot of material, but
getting it off the ground has probably been the bigger challenge.
I was going to say that is the one thing I've seen. Man, I've just struggled even last year with some of the sporadic rains, but like this year's been even harder to get with the humidity and the moisture. It's impossible to get stuff. And I know a lot of guys will either chop it or wrap it or whatever, so they're not as concerned. But I'm over here trying to make dry hay, and it's impossible.
Yeah, as humid as we've been, you don't think about that. Those windrows, it takes forever. You could probably bale at 6 p.m., right? That's when it's finally dry.
My problem is I really needed I need a hay tedder bad.
Sure.
And we historically been able to get away with it. Some guys do it regardless just because it helps speed it up that much. But I think it's going to maybe become a necessity almost for some guys that you have to TED. You got to spread that out before you rake it back into a windrow. But
so yeah, I mean, hay management. I mean, again, the challenges, the weather challenges. I think there's been plenty of opportunity to raise a whole lot of material for hay this year.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it baled, getting it off. You brought up when we want to make that last cutting, and we may or may not. We're having an agronomy update between now and then, but typically that second week of September, you want to be pretty much done with your last cutting.
Do you think with this recent bout of moisture, if it can get dried off enough to get in the field, do you think it will open up another shorter cutting almost for guys that say because I know there's some guys that here just tried to make a cutting before all this rain came in. They get all this rain, maybe they get something in here and then another one in between in September.
Absolutely.
I know there's really high productivity guys that make 4 or 5, maybe even 6 cuttings in a season, which is crazy.
We have tons of time. And if you think about last year, I always tell everybody, again, the reason you want to be done by that second week of September, you want to give that plant just a little bit of chance to regenerate before frost comes in, right? You want it to be fairly healthy and build some sugars before it goes into winter. Last year, we had it was super hot even in October. I remember soil testing in 90-degree heat in October, and that was very rare. Yeah. So really the reality is last year we had probably another 2 weeks
that you could have realistically. Right. Yeah. So it's not a hard calendar thing. It's just
right. But that's kind of been the overall theme. But the other thing is, I always stress to people, get some soil testing done after your last cutting. Right. We don't ever realize how much nutrients hay takes out of the soil, because you're taking the whole plant, and then you can all of a sudden blink your eyes, and the next thing you know, your soil test is just plummeted to levels that are very hard to recover from. So
you've gone from making however many tons in a year to half in the next, So
right. And we want to watch our pH and alfalfa, right? We want to keep that up around 7. And the other thing is, I did have a coworker brought in some hay and had some yellow leaves, and he actually had some aphids. Very confident he had some aphids in his alfalfa. So
I think I might have seen a little bit in mine early this year, but it wasn't anything. Right. And my alfalfa stand is pretty poor. It probably needs ripped up and something else put in. I need to move my alfalfa rotation somewhere else. But I'm on the fence on my hay and business whether I want to stick with alfalfa or not, because it's also one of those harder crops to manage. You're always trying to keep leaves on the stem, and that's a challenge for me in my 70s hay equipment.
Cut at the right time.
You want to cut it right when it starts to bloom, not after it's bloomed. And timing with hay is hard. It's so hard, especially when it's not your full-time gig. But
what do you do with aphids in there? Do you spray that with an insecticide, or you just bail it anyway?
Yeah, I mean, he was going to have to cut it. It was too close to.
You had to. Yeah, it all depends on where it's at. But I think depending on when you catch it, you can spray it if you really want it. And depending on the quality that you're looking out of that alfalfa, obviously, alfalfa tends to be a higher quality hay in general. But depending on what you're feeding it to, you may determine. I'll just mow it and make it. So it all depends.
Yeah, my recommendation to him was you're going to have to cut it. You can't spray it that late. Yeah. Well, because you can't spray it when your cows are going to get ready to eat it. And there's a harvest restriction.
Correct.
Yeah. So in reality, he's getting ready to cut it, and he's getting ready to feed it to his livestock. You don't want to put an insecticide on it that late.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't talk a lot about aphids and alfalfa. He said, they typically would have some leaf hoppers, but I was like, man, I think that's aphid damage. And ironically, we have aphids blowing in, for corn. And I told him just to cut it and probably spray it after he cuts it.
To get it clean. Yeah.
Yeah. And then aphids typically don't like that hot, dry weather. So, and we're in a spell right now, it's cool enough and wet enough, they're going to hang around.
Yeah.
So
the other thing going on, I don't know if you had anything else about those forages, but we're getting ready to chop corn here soon for our silage. That's right around the corner. I guess as soon as that moisture comes down to what, that 65, 68%, somewhere around in there.
As soon as the water comes off, too.
That too. But I've seen some crazy operations where it doesn't matter rain or shine. The corn's got to get chopped, so they go in and chop it.
Yeah. So you had asked me again, how do you estimate tonnage? And I have no clue. Obviously, we ear size is fairly important in silage because there's nutrient value
out of the ear.
Yeah. Right. But as we talked in our dairy podcast, dairy guys are they're using fungicide too, right? So that green, healthy plant is incredibly important to them as well. And, this year, gosh, man, should have been really good silage year.
I think it still will be, for the most part. I mean, again, it just all depends on how much water has been sitting on that field and if they can get into it before anything severe happens.
So we had some luscious, green, healthy corn plants.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Austin, you got any silage in your area?
There is one dairy bias, but I've never worked with silage, hay, or forage, so I've just kind of soaking it up, learning from you guys.
It is kind of fun. I mean, I started my ordeal in just doing dry hay, but now since started working at Trueland, they've got me in front of more and more different types of forages and silage, of course. So it's a super interesting process. It's awesome to get to see a chopper go in the field.
Those are cool.
Oh,
so much horsepower and speed. It's just amazing what they shove through that.
Well, you talk about like harvest logistics, and it's like, oh, I got to worry about where this semi's going with my grain, and I got a grain cart, and I'm like, that's nothing compared to guys. And I mean, there's constantly wagons and trucks going in and out, and trying to juggle that with who's getting what, and it is truly impressive watching a well operated
cool
chopping
technology on it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't discount the technology.
Harvest lab, the machine sync, the
Absolutely.
joysticks. It's all super cool. I just don't know anything about it.
We've definitely made some strides in that area as a company in Trulian and John Deere, and we got some pretty cool silage harvesting equipment out there.
New F8, F9 series just came out too, so that's exciting.
So we are obviously pushing silage time, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you really want to think about quote unquote harvest as a whole, we're going to get started here in the middle of August and not get done till November. So we got a long stretch here at the end where we'll be busy, but it's going to be touch and go, I think, just because of, like you said, how our planning dates were spread out. So
yeah. Any other thoughts, you two?
I don't think so. I think that's all I got besides the fact that I need to blow up my raft.
So like I said, there's a lot going on. If we'd have done this 2 weeks ago, it would have been the most boring agronomy update ever. But there's been a lot going on. So we're doing okay. We want to hope for the best and get those people that were affected by the flooding, and hopefully we can get that turned around. And we had limited damage, and like I said, I know we definitely still have some really, really good crops out there, and we'll see what happens next.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm still optimistic. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Me too. Always. Talk to you guys next time.
See ya.